Anyone watching right now, I'm going to be super blunt, and Ray, if you believe that I'm incorrect, I trust that you will correct me. Nobody's going to save anyone, and that's the hard truth. And if I go back in time, I find that I've listened to every word said on the subject publicly. If I look at history and hear what I've done, this will suck like there will be a level of brutality that most of us have not experienced. People will lose their jobs, businesses will fail, and many people will go hungry. Welcome to Empire Investing, the channel for aspiring millionaires and billionaires. If this is your first time watching our channel, please consider subscribing to see more videos just like this, and with that, let's get started. The same things repeatedly happen over time for basically the same reasons. Things like this only happen once in a lifetime, and failing to examine how they unfolded over time puts you at risk. In other words, I've noticed a pattern that occurs frequently. In order to deal with something, one must first understand how it occurs mechanistically rather than just because it has happened before. This is where we are now. Like in 1929 to 1932, a debt crisis came due to excessive debt during the boom years. We hit zero interest rates. In 1932, like in the year 2008, the central bank printed money and bought financial assets. In these cycles, central banks usually can stimulate the economy by lowering interest rates, but when you hit zero interest rates, that doesn't work. Zero interest rates were last seen in 1932, and the central banks did the same thing in 2008 when they printed a lot of money and bought government bonds as they did in 1932. To be clear, they're doing this because somebody has bought a government bond. It's like the government is saying, "Hey you, dear person, lend me the money. I'm gonna build roads, whatever, but I'm gonna pay you back in a year or two or 10 years, whatever, plus interest." What makes it worthwhile and why the government is stepping up and buying those, I would believe, is to return liquidity to the people who have loaned them that money. Yes, since the government and businesses believe that individuals are incapable of creating money. As a result, the federal government has the authority to decide whether or not it can tax people and collect money from them. They are free to spend their money on whatever they desire. Nonetheless, unlike the central bank, they do not have the authority to generate money, create credit, or print money. The central bank is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve does not have the right to spend money and determine how money should be spent. That's a matter for Congress to decide. Every individual, company, and government has a specific quantity of money that comes in the form of revenue, expenses, and savings. If the revenue falls below their expenses, they will be in danger. Unless they have substantial savings, then they can go to the savings. There are several entities in distress all around the world. As a result, the government has to provide them with money which is created digitally in the form of loans. This means that the government is receiving monies and then selecting how to distribute them. There will be bond purchases by the Federal Reserve. As a result, they will purchase both public and private bonds as part of the transaction. They could go for a single business or a slew of them, and they'll say, "I will buy your bonds," which is the equivalent to "I will lend to you." Our current situation mirrors the 1930s to 1945 period in terms of how it's been done before. Why should anyone care about this? That's something they don't have or think about, and they may not even know about what 401ks are or if they even have one. So what are their options here? Whether or not they can learn from the past and move on now to make things easier for them, or whatever or not they can simply stay put and weather the storm, is up for debate. Numerous organizations around the world are in this situation. There are some things you need to know if you understand this. If you lose your job or your income falls below a specific level, or if you have to apply for unemployment benefits, you should undertake a stress test to see how long you can live comfortably and if you have enough funds to cover that period of time. Basically, what you do is figure out how long it would take you to live comfortably in a simpler lifestyle if you had this amount of money. Which countries or time periods have successfully managed similar crises so that we emerge with the least amount of grief and suffering possible? An illustration of this would be Roosevelt's approach. We had a huge wealth difference between 1929 and 1932 when interest rates were essentially zero. The government produced money and they sat down to figure out how they could keep it in order and how to change the circumstances, whether it was taxes or a reorganization of the system. Because the world is going through it, there is also a risk, a chance that something will get heated. As the world transitions, many attempts have been done to reorganize the system to make it more efficient. For example, in 1933, when Hitler came to power in Germany, there was much internal fighting to bring order to production because everyone on the left and right, communists and fascists, were all fighting over wealth. Then there were democracies, 4 of them, that opted not to be democracies because their governments had become so chaotic that they needed a strong leader to take command and administer the country. Then, of course, we had a slew of those types of leaders and a conflict ensued. This is how World War II began, so that's kind of the political scene when you look at it. But returning to the normal man's finances, I believe these 3 factors are the most important: to have a plan and possibly a plan with both you and your family members. What is the significance of education regarding safeguarding future generations and how much of that is due to education? The most important thing is education. My family's financial resources were limited when I was growing up. My father played jazz while my mother stayed at home to raise me. However, I was fortunate in that I was raised by loving parents and attended a public school. After graduating from high school, I found myself in an equal opportunity society. I believe that these are essentials that you should be aware of: how to learn facts, such as reading, writing, and mathematics, but also how to interact properly with people. Citizenship is defined as being able to work as well as completing any kind of schooling that works. I believe that the 3 most important aspects of a job should be able to make your work and your passion one and the same thing and to make it financially viable. You'll probably be better at your job if you enjoy it. There's also the financial aspect to consider. It might be anything from learning a skill or whatever it is. Education does not have to be college. College is exaggerated. So as we enter the following 3 to 5 years of the cycle, what is one thing that people can do that you know from history will best insulate them from the likely emotional and financial damage, or whatever you believe is more important? My first instinct was to prepare for the worst case scenario and turn it into something spectacular. You need to know how to triangulate well, to deal with any challenges you may have, and how to work through it to find the road and discover your true nature. Meditation has been quite beneficial to me as well. When you meditate, you gain a sense of serenity and balance that allows you to negotiate your life circumstances with greater clarity and less anxiety. It's good for you since it relieves stress and sharpens your decision-making skills. It's also going to make you a triangulator. If you're an excellent triangulator, you can get the best ideas from a variety of people without having to do all the work yourself. That's all for today. What do you think about Ray Dalio's final warning? Join the discussion in the comments below, and if you like the video, please click the like and subscribe button. We'll see you guys in the next video.